Good day to you. This is your teacher of geography, Mr. Mlenga. So I just want us to continue from where we ended in our previous lesson, where we started looking at world farming. So in today's lesson, I want us to look at the different types of farming that we find across the world. Now, one thing I want you to understand about the types of farming that we're able to find in different types of the world is that there are two main categories. That is, farming can either be arable, which is also known as crop farming, or it can be pastoral, which is also known as animal rearing farming. Now, here is an example of arable farming, which is crop farming. And on the other side, we have pastoral farming, which is also referred to as animal rearing. Now, what is key to note is that when you look at pastoral farming is mostly referred to as animal husbandry. Now, when you just see the term or the concept rather of animal husbandry, what you must be able to understand is that animal husbandry is simply the keeping of livestock. Now, we also have what we call crop husbandry. Now, crop husbandry is simply the growing of crops. Now, crops can either be cash crop or food crops. Now, just the word itself, cash crop, should be able to make you understand to say these are crops which are grown specifically for the purpose of making money. So these are crops such that when you sell them, you can be able to make more money. But when you say food crops, these are crops basically which are there to provide food for different farmers or families. Now, examples of cash crops include maize, tobacco, rubber, tea, coffee, cocoa, sunflower, and many more. Then we also have some examples of food crops such as maize, sorghum, millet, beans, among others. So maize, as you're able to see, is both a cash crop and a food crop. Now, let me take you straight into tropical agriculture. Now, I want you to understand to say tropical agriculture has different types under it. Now, here is the basic concept. When we say types of world farming, or when they ask you a question in the exam to say, explain the types of world farming, what you must be able to understand is that we have the type of farming that is practiced in tropical areas, and we have the type of farming that is practiced in temperate areas. Now, I'm going to explain that in detail. So, tropical agriculture, this is the type of agriculture that you're able to find in tropical regions. So, we're going to look at those tropical regions in detail at a later stage. Now, when we say tropical agriculture, we have several examples which fall under tropical agriculture, and that is primitive subsistence agriculture or shifting cultivation, intensive farming, and plantation farming. So, the types of agriculture which are very common in tropical areas are shifting cultivation, intensive farming, and plantation. So, this is our first category of farming that we find across the world, specifically in the tropical regions. Then we have what we call temperate agriculture. This is the type of agriculture that is found in temperate regions. I'm going to explain what temperate regions are at a later stage. Now, when we say temperate agriculture, here are some of the examples of the types of agriculture that you find in temperate regions or under temperate agriculture. We have extensive farming, we have mixed farming, and livestock or pastoral farming in general. So these are the two main types of farming that you're able to find across the world: tropical agriculture and temperate agriculture. And you must be able to understand and remember always the types of agriculture that fall under each category of farming. Now, we're going to look at tropical agriculture in detail now. Now, when you say tropical agriculture, we are looking at the tropics, the tropical region. As you are able to see on our key here, on the bottom part where it says tropical zone here on the map, our key here says, the bottom part here says tropical zone. Now, here where you're able to see the reddish color, this reddish color, which you're able to see here, is indicating the tropical regions. Now, these are places which are 23.5 degrees above the equator and below the equator. That is the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. These areas you find within the tropics. These are what we call the tropical areas. Now, in these areas, this is where you find the tropical type of agriculture. That is shifting cultivation, intensive farming, and plantation farming. These are areas where you are able to predominantly see these types of farming. Now, we also have what we call temperate regions. As you are able to see where these areas showing green, the green areas, as our key is able to indicate temperate zone. Now, these areas, these are areas which are neither too cold nor too hot. They have moderate temperatures, moderate climate, not too much rainfall, and not too little rainfall. These are temperate regions, and in these temperate regions, that's where you're able to find extensive farming, mixed farming, and livestock farming, predominantly. Now, we're going to go in details by looking at tropical agriculture, and the first one that we're going to look at will be shifting cultivation. Now, here is the definition. We are saying tropical agriculture is the type of agriculture practiced in the world's tropical regions. Now, these are areas found within the tropics, that is the Tropic of Cancer, 23.5 degrees north and south of the equator, and the Tropic of Capricorn, 23.5 degrees south of the equator, just like I indicated to you earlier. Now, I want us to understand primitive agriculture or shifting cultivation. Now, when we say shifting cultivation, we simply mean slash and burn or migratory farming. Now, this is a type of farming where the farmers are involved in rotation of fields rather than crops and land. Clearing is done by slashing and burning of vegetation to use as ash, which is in turn used as fertilizer. Now, here is what it is. Whenever you hear shifting cultivation, always remember to say this is a traditional type of farming where the farmers cut down the trees, allow them to dry, burn them, and use ash as fertilizer. That is the basic concept. When the land faces decline in soil fertility, the farmers abandon it and move to a virgin land. Now, when we say virgin land, we mean a land that is new, a land that has never been tampered with, a land with natural vegetation, which is in its natural state, which has never been tampered with. That's where, the farmers move to when the land they're using faces decline in soil fertility. Now, the abandoned land, this is very important. This point is very, very important. I see this a lot in past papers. The abandoned land is allowed to regain its fertility after a number of years. Now, this process of allowing the land to regain its fertility after a number of years is what we call fallowing. Now, this system is practiced where population densities are low. It's quite logical. You cannot be moving from one place to another, abandoning land when the area has too many people. So this is mostly practiced in low density areas. Now, this form of cultivation in Zambia is commonly known as Chitemene system. Examples of crops grown under shifting cultivation include maize, beans, sorghum, millet, and cassava, among others. Now, as you're able to see on this field, this is a field or this is a piece of land where you have trees which are being cut down. Once the trees are cut down, they are now burnt in order to produce ash. This ash is what is in turn used as fertilizer. So this cutting down of trees, you allow them to dry, you burn them, and use ash as fertilizer. This is the basic concept of shifting cultivation or Chitemene system as it is commonly known in Zambia. Now, what are the characteristics of shifting cultivation? The vegetation is cleared by cutting, slashing, and burning. After burning, the ash is added to soil as fertilizer. Cultivation is done using simple tools. Now, simple tools such as hoes, axes, and the like. Very simple tools. The other characteristic is that a lot of manual labor is required. It also usually practices, the cutting down of trees, burning them, and allowing ash to be used as fertilizer in sparsely populated areas. Now, when we say sparsely populated areas, we mean areas which have relatively smaller populations. Harvesting is done manually, and the yield is low, and it is mainly only for subsistence. The other characteristic is that plots are left to fallow, and I explained earlier what fallow means, for a long period of time after harvesting to enable them to regain fertility. Crops are also intercropped. Now, when we say intercropping, we mean the growing of different types of crops on the same piece of land. Examples of such crops which can be intercropped include beans and maize. For example, you may have maize, but on the same field where you've planted maize, you put a bit of beans there and cassava. That is what we mean when we say intercropping. Now, let me take you to the advantages of shifting cultivation. The first point is that it is a cheap method of farming, since only simple tools like hoes and axes are used. Burning of vegetation also helps to kill pests and parasites or parasitic weeds. A variety of crops is also assured. Remember, we said it practices intercropping, meaning that there is growing of different, crops on the same field. That's an advantage. Disadvantages. It causes environmental degradation. Now, when we say environmental degradation, we mean destroying the environment due to deforestation. So due to deforestation, the environment is damaged. Now, the yields are so poor. That's another disadvantage. Why? Because of poor methods of farming. The soil living organisms are also destroyed during slashing and burning. That's another disadvantage. Now, let me take you straight into our next farming type that you find under that you find, another method of farming that you're able to find under tropical farming. That is intensive farming. So our first method that we are able to find under tropical agriculture is shifting cultivation or primitive type of farming. Then our next one is now intensive farming. Now, what is intensive farming? Just the word itself, intensive, will make you understand the concept to say this is a permanent system of farming, which is very intensively done. Now, I want you to understand what we mean when we say intensive. We mean you're using a small piece of land with maximum production. So it involves maximum use of land without wasting any place. So cultivation is limited to small plots for many, many years, for decades, without allowing it to rest. This is called permanent field cultivation. You're using the same piece of land. You're not moving from one piece of land to another. You're using a permanent field for cultivation for many, many years. That is intensive farming. Now, in order to achieve this, farmers use large amounts of fertilizers and hybrid seeds. Intensive field cultivation is also primarily done in densely populated areas where you cannot easily move to another place abandoning a piece of land because you're definitely going to find other people there. So this is done in densely populated areas. It is also practiced on small plots of land with maximum productivity. Now, here is an example. You're looking at this piece of land where there is maximum production and you're using machinery so that you can maximize the production, so that you don't waste time using a hoe or an axe trying to turn the soil upside down when you have machinery. So, as you're able to see, when it comes to intensive farming, there is maximum production on small plots of land. Now, examples of countries that practice intensive farming include the monsoon lands of Asia, that is China, Japan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Indonesia, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Thailand, North and South Korea, Malaysia, and Java. These are the countries which practice intensive farming. And as you might be aware, these countries are densely populated. There are a lot of people in these countries. So you cannot just easily move from one place to another, abandoning a piece of land. So that is why there is intensive farming in these areas. This farming practice is referred to as Oriental agriculture of the Eastern world. Now, this is very important. I see this question a lot in past papers where they say, what is Oriental agriculture? Now, this is the type of cereal cultivation practiced in the monsoon lands of Asia or the Eastern world. It is also carried out in some parts of Africa like Burundi, Burkina Faso, Kenya, Nigeria, among others. Now, there are two types of intensive farming. We have what we call intensive subsistence farming dominated by wet paddy. We also have intensive agriculture dominated by other food crops such as wheat, soya, beans, barley, and millet. Now, when we say wet paddy, in general terms, we mean rice. So those are the two types of intensive farming. Now, let me give you just a simple image indicating, the wet paddy cultivation. As you're able to see, there is machinery here which is being used in production or cultivation of wet paddy. Now, I want to take you straight into the ECZ exam or examination past paper questions. So we're going to start with the first question, which says the type of, or should we say, the farming type practiced in the Eastern world, Asia, is commonly referred to as, now this is basically what what I was just from explaining, to say in the Eastern world, where you find countries like Bangladesh, Japan, China, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, these countries, they practice what we call Oriental agriculture. So the best possible answer here on question 20 is Oriental agriculture. Next question, question 29. Which of the following crops are grown under shifting cultivation? Now, I gave you a variety of crops grown under shifting cultivation. Is barley a crop grown under shifting cultivation? No. This is a crop grown under intensive farming. So A is not the answer. Cassava and maize, are these crops grown under shifting cultivation? Yes. These crops are grown under shifting cultivation. So the best possible answer on question 29 is cassava and maize. Sorghum is grown also under shifting cultivation, but rice is not. Rice is grown under intensive farming. Wheat is not grown under shifting cultivation. Mainly, it is grown under, it is grown under oriental or wet paddy farming. So the best possible answer on question 29 is B, which is cassava and maize. Now, let me take you straight into the next question. What does the term intercropping mean? This is basically what I explained. Is it A, alternating cultivation of crops with following, growing a crop in one field and then transplant it into another field, growing different crops in alternate rows in a field, growing one type of crop twice a year in one field? We said intercropping is growing of different types of crops, in one field. So the best possible answer is here, is C rather, which says growing different crops in alternate rows in a field. So you're growing different crops in one field. Next question. The highest density of rural population is generally associated with cattle ranching, extensive wheat cultivation, intensive rice cultivation, nomadic herding. Now, I made mention to you to say, whenever you see high density areas, this is where you find intensive cultivation. Sparsely populated areas, you find shifting cultivation. So, because we have high density rural population here, the best possible answer is intensive rice cultivation. So, these questions are extracts from the 2016 paper 1 and the 2013 paper 1. I would like to thank you so much for your attention. I'll see you in our next meeting where we shall continue looking at other types of world farming. Have a lovely day.